Okay, Taito, what are you doing? I know you don't need to release games on the Disk System. Why, just this month you've released Arkanoid 2 and Fudo Myo-Oden over on the regular Famicom. So why are you releasing arcade ports like Wardner no Mori on the Disk System where it's just going to die? I mean, I'm not complaining. It's nice to play something fun for a change. But you didn't have to do this. Wardner no Mori was originally an arcade game released in 1987, so this is a really fast turnaround. It was developed by Toaplan, in between making a bunch of shooters that people actually wanted to play. Wardner, well, there's a reason there's no Wardner 2. The plot of the game is that you're Prince Alamode, and your girlfriend Princess Pudding has been kidnapped by the evil wizard Wardner. Naturally, it's up to you to get her back. That's a quest that will take you through 6 stages of action as you slaughter every monster that Wardner can put in your way. This is an action platformer which follows the usual control conventions where A jumps and B shoots, and when you start out you only have a little flame that will shoot forward and then fall to the ground. There are 2 ways that you can get more power. First, you can collect orbs, mostly from enemies that you defeat, and if you collect enough orbs, then you'll get the ability to fire extra shots. The other option is to collect money bags and treasure that you'll find laying around the stage, and after stages 1, 2, and 3, you'll go to a shop where you can buy a new weapon. There's 3 weapons that you can buy, and they are actually kind of expensive. You are very unlikely to be able to afford all 3. Really, the best you can hope for is 2 of them. The star power-up costs 1500, and it shoots out in a wave. The moon costs 2000, and those shots circle around a bit. And finally, the sun costs 3000, and it fires a concentrated stream shot that dips like the original fireball. All of these power up with orbs, just like the fireball did, and if you're careful about collecting them, you'll probably be pretty close to full power when you reach the final boss. You switch weapons by pressing start to pause the game, and then pressing select. That's also how you use the bombs, which destroy all enemies on the screen, assuming you've found one. There's one more stored power-up that you can pick up or buy, and that's the clock, and that gives you some more time if it runs out, which it might if you're sitting around trying to grind for cash. The stages in Wardner no Mori are surprisingly complex. There's a huge variety of obstacles. Not all of them are as straightforward as they seem, and some of them are only used in one point in the game. It's a level design that feels like it comes from a few years after this. Take for example when you reach Wardner's castle on stage 4. Now you could follow the path up and around, finding your way through a maze, maybe picking up a special item that only appears on that stage, which lets you take additional damage. Or you could skip the whole stage. If you took an extra key from the previous level, then there are some cells just inside the castle entrance, and while one of them holds a monster that will attack you, the other holds a helpful fellow who will push you through a secret passage and drops you off essentially at the end of the stage. There are weird little touches like that everywhere in Wardner. There's unique monsters that only appear in one place in the game, creative platforming traps that require some skill to get around, but not necessarily foreknowledge, and hidden items if you can navigate a maze of platforms just right. This fairy can only be found on stage 2, and it will damage any enemies that get close to you, but if you die, then it's gone forever. It's actually kind of astounding how much they packed into this game. I'm used to the discs providing something like a 1986 Famicom game, and in terms of sheer quantity and variety of things happening, this is closer to 1991. But it's not all good news. The platforming is really rough here. Your jump is weirdly stiff. You have a bit of air control at the start, and then you rapidly lose it. So that makes some jumps, especially getting to lower platforms, weirdly difficult. Sometimes you have to crouch down and do tiny little hops to get through gaps in order to collect items. Jumping off of ladders and vines barely works. You are going to fall into things that will hurt you a lot more than you'd like. At least here, it just damages you rather than kills you outright like it did in the arcade. You only have one life in Wardner no Mori, but you can save your progress at the stage that you died at, and have as many continues as you like. Not that you really need a whole lot of continues. This game is extremely easy. So easy that you'll probably get to the last boss the first time you'll actually sit down and put a little bit of effort into it. That last boss is really the only boss, though there are stronger enemies that appear at the end of stages. They use that same enemy over and over again. That continue system winds up being really the only practical way to recover health, since there's only a couple of very well hidden health recoveries, or you can pay 500 for a potion that will heal about a third of your bar. Paying for health is a bad choice here, just continue and retry. This wasn't the only port that Wardner got. About 5 years later, there was a very late port to the Mega Drive. But more infamously, there was going to be a port to the PC Engine. It was announced that it would be released at about the same time as this Disk System version, and then for the next 5 years, NEC would regularly announce another delay in releasing it. Apparently a CD version was finished, but it was such low quality that they never released it. The Famicom Disk System port of Wardner has a pretty good reputation in Japan. It's not wildly popular, it is a Disk System game after all, but I was able to find plenty of people talking about how much they enjoyed it.
To me, Wardner feels like a bit of a lungfish. It's transitioning between two different eras of game design, but they hadn't quite figured out how to make it work yet. I can tell you about more cool stuff that's in Wardner no Mori, and honestly, I expect that a lot of you who are watching this will go out and try it. But a video doesn't capture the feeling of playing it, and that's where Wardner no Mori stumbles. So give it a look. Check out the interesting obscurity that was a bit ahead of its time in some ways. Just don't expect greatness from it.